Hi, my name is Madeline, and I gave my son up for adoption in 1968. This will be our year anniversary that we have been in contact.
Hi, my name's Mickey. I was given up for adoption when I was born. I recently found my biological mother on Ancestry.com, and this is our story.
It was in 1968. I was 20 years old, but I came from a very Italian Catholic background, and it was a kind of a confusing situation. But anyway, my grandparents had raised me along with my father, my uncle, and my sister. We were in the same family.
Ever since I can remember. My parents always told me.
My father had died when I was in Illinois, where I had met my fiancé, my son's father. And anyway, after my father died, I went to see my fiancé. Well, at that time, he proposed to me when I went to Webster Springs, West Virginia to see him. Anyway, Mickey was conceived there.
It wasn't really hard. I was very fortunate. My parents always gave me whatever I wanted. They were always there for me. They really couldn't have children before I was born. They adopted me, and then 2 years later they actually had my brother, and then 2 years after that my youngest brother. So we were raised in a Christian environment. I was always given whatever I wanted. My father was always my coach in sports. I got along with my brothers. My mom comes from a big family, so I had a lot of cousins growing up. So I just had a normal childhood.
It didn't work out that great. His parents didn't want him to get married. He thought he was too young, and it wasn't a very good experience. So the 2 weeks I was there, it was so unusual because I was 19 and he was 20, my fiance, Jimmy, and they wanted us to be chaperoned the whole time we were there. Plus, like I said, the mother didn't want us to get married, and I didn't feel welcomed at all in the family. So what I did was I broke up with him before I left. And to my surprise, when I got home, I found out I was pregnant.
Ever since I can remember, I've always, even though I had a great childhood, there was always something missing. You know, I always knew I was adopted, and I'm not real similar, or I don't have a lot in common with my brothers. I mean, we always got along, but you know, you could tell that we weren't blood relatives, but they are my brothers and my parents are my parents. When my wife and I've been married for 20 years now, actually 22 years. And before we got married, it was actually going through a real hard time. I kind of didn't know who I was at that point. I mean, I knew who I was, but there was questions. And my mom actually gave us some paperwork. At that time, it was kind of pre-internet, or the internet was just starting, and you had to submit to the state to find out, you know, your information on who your biological parents were. And I kind of chickened out. I didn't do anything with it. And when I turned 50, my wife kind of said, well, you're 50, I ordered this kit, and you're gonna submit in your DNA. And I was like, okay, and I really didn't think anything of it. And we registered the account, and like 6 weeks went by, and I got an email and said, your results are in. So I was like, okay, this is whatever. And I logged in, and immediately I saw first cousins, their names, and I was like, well, this is real. So from that point on, we kind of took it and ran with it. And at first it was more of a kind of a health thing to know, because we have a son, he's 21, and he's had some issues, and I had cancer at one point in my life, and not knowing really if there's any, what your health history is kind of, when you have a child, you kind of want to know, you know, for his future as well, if there's anything we need to be aware of. So that was the main thing at first, but then when I saw the names and I realized, well, this is real, you know. And my wife has a coworker, and she's real familiar with the site, and she helped her navigate through it, and they kind of took it and ran with it, and they actually found my biological father's side first, and connected with a half-sister that I have, and she informed him. He didn't know about me, and she gave us Madeline's name, or he gave us Madeline's name, excuse me, and from then we found her. So it was pretty neat.
My grandmother found out, and she told me, I called her and I was crying, and she said, are you pregnant? And I said, yes. And she said, look, I want you to give up the baby. I don't want you to destroy the Camusi name, whatever that meant. And I had just lost your father, and I raised you, so I want you to do this for me. And there was a lot of honor in, because my grandmother raised me, she raised me as best as she could. There was honor there, and I felt obligated to my grandmother.
The one thing my parents always knew, they really didn't know a lot about my biological family, but they knew somebody was a musician, and when I found his name, I immediately saw he was in the LA Philharmonic Orchestra, so that's when it hit me, when I knew it was real. And I kind of broke down at that point, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then from then, I found Madeline, and I actually found a birthday posting for this, for her home here, and it had her name on it. And so it had the name of the, where she lives here in Glen Park. And I looked up the number, and I just called out of the blue, and my wife was on her way home from work. She wasn't even home. And I waited on hold for a while because I called the front desk, so she had to walk to the front desk, and it seemed like an eternity, but she picked up the phone, and I just asked her, I said, hi Madeline, my name's Mickey, and I believe you're my biological mother. And from then on, we just had a connection. And my wife she got home when we were talking, and I called her, because from the time I found her name to the time we were talking was about 30 minutes. So she was on her way home, and I had called her and said I found her name. But when she got home, we were talking, and I said, hey, I'm talking to Madeline. She's like, you're talking to Madeline? So it's kind of a neat story, and we just have had a connection since then. So
my mother didn't want me to give up the baby, so I was in a catch-22. But I kept calling my grandmother, and I kept crying, saying what would be so bad if I brought I didn't know it brought my baby home. And she said, no, I want you to follow through. I'll send you money, I'll do whatever you need, but I really want you to give him up. And so I listened to her. And in those days, well, I ended up having my son. And in those days, you could keep the baby. You could be with your baby for 3 days. So we developed a strong bond. And oh, he was just such a good baby. He never cried.
One of the first things she said was, I'm okay, don't worry about me, how are you? You know, so that was reassuring, and I was very fortunate and happy and thankful. So it was, it was kind of overwhelming, because, here I am 50 years old, and I'm speaking to my biological mother for the first time. So, there's a million things going on in your mind, but I felt very fortunate.
The nurse came in on the 3rd day and said to me, Madeline, this is the time. You have to give him up. And I didn't want to cry in front of him, but I had tears rolling down my face. And when I gave him to the nurse, that was the first time he cried. and I had to leave him like that, crying, and I never forgot that.
Our son, he's very close to my parents. So at first he was kind of like, he's 20 years old, and at that time he's 21 now, but so he didn't know how to react, I don't think. But you know, my parents actually were very supportive of everything, and they assured him that it was fine. It's just a normal thing. That my mom told him, you know, I would want to know as well, you know. So he's very good with it now. It just, at first it was, he didn't know how to react, you know. And he came out here with us the first time and met Madeline, and he talks to her, and so he's on board and great with it now. So I think everybody has their own reaction to it, you know. It affects everybody differently. The very good thing about it is that, you know, my wife and I and Tanner, my son, our son, and my parents were all on board with it, and so it's all very positive. You know, it's, you know, you see the shows, the adoption shows, and there's all kinds of different outcomes. Some of them are negative, you know, and ours has been nothing but positive. So we're all very fortunate. I feel very fortunate, very blessed.
But before he found me, I was telling one of my dearest friends, I really want to look for him. And about a month and a half later, he contacted me.
And the very first time I saw her was right here at Glen Park Healthy Living. We had flown in and rented a car, and it was my wife and Tanner and myself, and she walked out the front doors, and you know, I saw her, and we gave a big hug to each other, and it was just very neat, you know. I didn't know what to expect, and you know, to be honest with you, it's been over a year, and it's still, you know, it's still a lot, you know. It's very positive, but you know, there's 50 years of time to make up, you know, so there's still a lot of emotions, and I'm very thankful. I mean, that's the one thing that, you know, I can tell you is that I'm just so fortunate and thankful for, I'm happy that she's healthy. I'm happy that for everyone in my life, it's just been a positive experience. And I mean, I couldn't ask for more. So the main thing is I'm just very happy that Madeline's been able to experience this with us and with me, and I've been able to experience with her, and I actually had a chance to meet my biological father as well. He's actually passed away, but the whole timing of everything, I mean, was just, it couldn't have been any better, you know. I mean, I'm just very fortunate and thankful.
He found me, and he got on the computer, and he found me through Glen Park, but he didn't know if I lived here or if I was a resident, and he saw the birthdays, and then he saw my name. So he contacted Glen Park, not knowing if I was a resident here or if I worked here. And so anyway, Hezekiah, nobody knew I had a son. So Hezekiah called me over the PA system and said, Madeline, could you please come to the front desk? And he had contacted Hezekiah and told her, is Madeline Camusi there? And she goes, yes, who may I say is calling? And he said, this is her son.
Her and her mother kind of went to an adoption agency and picked 3 couples and ended up picking out my parents. And when I told my parents that, they were very thrilled, and it made them happy. You know, it was just kind of like, the whole thing just couldn't have worked out any better, you know, for everybody.
Oh, I was so excited. Words can't express how I felt. And it was like there was no time loss when we met. We just picked up. He met my family. Oh, I'd like to say something. His first cousins. See, they're football fanatics and sports fanatics. All my nephews and his first cousins. So they just blended. I feel like a whole person. There was always a part of me missing before Mickey came into my life.
And I feel the same way. As I said before Kim and I got married, there was just something that wasn't answered yet, and it took another 21 years, but thankfully now we're together and
Yes.
we've met, and I feel complete, yes.
In so many ways, I've always been a happy person, but I'm just so happy. We keep in touch. We have the most beautiful connection. I couldn't ask for a better son. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of who he's become in life. And his parents did such a beautiful job raising him, and that makes me feel happy.
And I feel like I've gained another family. I mean, I've met my cousins and Madeline's sister, and it's just been wonderful.
Oh, yes. We're starting to more and more. We're both chocoholics.
Yeah.
He loves his hot fudge sundaes, and so do I. But we love hot food. We both love spicy hot food. Matter of fact, yesterday we went to a restaurant and we were putting Tabasco sauce together on our food.
Yeah.
So, and what else, Mickey?
Madeline likes to walk fast, and so do I. And, you know, before he met Madeline, when my wife and I are walking around, she'll always tell me to slow down, and so I know where I get it from now.
Oh, we talk every week at least, sometimes twice. We text, and we just keep in touch. This is the second time within a year that they've been out, so that's wonderful.
No.
Not yet.
No, I don't.
No.
Yeah. I call her Madeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He calls me Madeline, but I call him my son. I'll text my greatest son, and you know, I don't mind. But you know, he does call me Madeline, and that's okay.
Yeah. And maybe, you know, after time, maybe I will.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to, you know, I just want everything to be natural.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to fake anything.
Oh, yeah.
And that's important to me, you know, and like I said, I couldn't be more thankful. This has just been incredible.
We are starting to say, though, love you, and
Yes. I do love Madeline.
and I love Mickey. And, you know, it's so beautiful because Kim, his wife, told me he won't tell you he loves you until it's time. And now we always end our phone calls with love you. Well, I've always been a very loving person. And it took Mickey a while, but now it's there.
Yeah, I'm a pretty guarded person, but
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
this is
And
wonderful.
I'm the opposite, you know. So that's good for you, you know. But
Where do I get that from?
I don't know.
I mean, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to become me and pick my parents out and just be so open to our relationship. And, you know, when I called her, it could have been so different because I caught her off guard, you know. There was no warning for her. You know, at least I was able to do some research and find some things out before I called you, and you were just so welcoming and open to my family, and so, and it just means a lot. So I really appreciate it.